I didn't like the Bears draft whatsoever, honestly. I want to talk about this more. Wayne, you were there. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. But in general, man, just to kind of go to our pick, we get to number 9 and the player we've been talking about this whole offseason, everything that we've been, kind of wanting. The reason why we thought we could move down from 1 to 9 safely and still have a chance was to get Jalen Carter. And to me, I think this guy is going to be an absolute game breaker. I think he's going to be, the best inside interior defensive lineman for the years to come. He found the perfect spot, I think, in terms of what happened in this offseason versus like what kind of team do you want to walk into? You got old friends there. You've got veterans. You've got a team that just went to the Super Bowl. For all those reasons, Jalen Carter will probably be, even a tick better than he would have if he, went to Chicago. But for me, it was just such a lukewarm feeling just to kind of be in that spot at number 9 and then to see the trade pop up. And, we move back one spot. We get a 4th round kicker. I mean, I would like to think that there were other teams in that first round that would have traded up to get Jalen Carter besides Philly. So we dish him to Philly, who's the defending NFC champion. We're trying to build a thing. We're trying to get there. They've got Jalen Hurts in a lot of years to come. And it's like we just handed over the pick that they wanted. And it's like in return, we get a tackle. We get, one of the top 3 tackles. I like Darnell Wright as a pick there. I think, could we have moved back much further to get him? Probably not. But in the same sense, like, why didn't we just get Jalen Carter and then maybe in the 2nd or 3rd round go after, a guy like Tyler Steen or a guy like DeJuan Jones? Because for me, like, you're just picking Darnell Wright to be your right tackle too. He's not your blindside tackle. He's not, the leader of your offensive line. Like, I think you could have gotten the value maybe you wanted or maybe a tick below, in the 2nd round or so. And for me, that set the tone for the entire draft, because then at that point, now we're chasing, the defensive lineman, the defensive tackle. And it's like, we go Gervon Dexter, who's very raw, had probably a 65 grade on PFF. Zach Pickens from South Carolina also had a pretty low grade. He's a better pass rusher, they say, in terms of interior defensive linemen. Tyreek Stevenson seemed to get kind of, mixed reviews. They say he's a good cover corner. He can play on the outside, but he's a below grade athlete. Noah Sewell, same thing. Terrell Smith, like, they lack a lot of agility, just being able to cut as linebackers and cornerbacks and stuff. I mean, the only upside I took from this draft, like, at least from like, besides Darnell Wright being like a solid choice, is, maybe the upside of a Roshan Johnson from Texas. They said he was blocked by, Bijan Robinson, but has a lot of explosiveness as a running back. Perhaps he pushes both Herbert and the guy we got from Carolina, Foreman. It's possible. And Tyler Scott, they said, is a very physical, former running back that's been converted to a wide receiver from Cincinnati that may, be able to fight for balls, give us some good kind of downfield type playmaking. But, to me, it just felt like another Bears draft, another Bears offseason of like, great, we went out and like picked the right position at the right pick, but we didn't get the top player at that spot. And again, that kind of goes back to my Detroit stuff. I know we're going to kind of have a good laugh about it. It's going to be funny watching this back and stuff. But like, that's the problem that I have is like, we just went to sell out for the tackle, because if we didn't get that tackle in the first round, the fan base would have said something about it. But in general, I feel like you take Jalen Carter there, you've just bought yourself a couple extra years as GM of the Chicago Bears. But just my take.
My question on that, Pat, is do you believe Jalen Carter succeeds with the Bears as opposed to, where he is now with the Eagles?
I think the talent alone will speak volumes no matter what jersey he's putting on. I think that if he can get over, and I don't know Jalen Carter's character. I don't know his mental makeup. I don't know how resilient he's going to be to, drag racing in the offseason, perhaps witnessing a friend of his pass, and in the same sense, like show up to the combine, probably, reeling from everything that happened with that and kind of showing up out of shape and not putting his best effort. Like, do I think he's going to be a better player next year because he's on the Eagles? Like, hell yeah, because he's going to be supported by one of the best, defensive lines and linebacking crews and secondaries in the game. And, they're a great organization. Like, they'll find a way to kind of fit him in at the right spot. with the Bears, he would have been, carrying the torch for that entire defense. And, we still have a long way to go to make that, I think, a respectable unit, just depth wise and experience wise, veteran wise. Like, we still need a lot of, I think, talent on that end. So he would have been carrying a lot of weight, but the top player on the big board for the entire draft fell to us at number 9, and we just said, nah, no thanks, we don't want him here. Like, NFC defending champs, you guys can have him. Just give us a 4th rounder, we're fine with it. So yeah, to me, I thought it was a bunch of crap, but it's like, I don't know. I just had very mixed feelings about everything we just went out and got, and I don't walk away thinking like, man, we've got some like fixtures here on either side of the ball for years to come. I'm just more or less like, I really hope Darnell Wright is what everyone's talking about, because if he's not, like, this is a pretty crappy draft in my opinion.
Yeah, I'll come in on the rest of the draft, and then I'll let you, Taylor, jump in on Jalen Carter a little bit here, and maybe would he maybe be a better fit, or would he fit into any team necessarily, regardless of these things that happened in this past and all that. So. But with regards to the Bears drafts, I don't mind Darnell Wright. I think it was, we needed a right tackle. He fits our scheme, fits our coaching attitude, fits our organization's attitude as well. So, and I don't think he actually gets past the tight ends. I think, the tight ends got Peter Skoronski, I think, who is, slated maybe more so as a guard, but definitely has some tackle upside. So, I think they draft him, being, he's from Tennessee. Probably has a hometown type of a feel for him there too. So the rest of the drafts, I kind of agree with you on. They didn't address edge rusher. I think was my biggest thing. And now they're going to have to go through free agency. Maybe that was the plan all along, getting, Yannick Ngakoue, or, maybe Chase Young, I think is another name that's being thrown around. So, but Gervon Dexter, a lot of question marks there. I think he was actually rated coming out of high school higher than Jalen Carter, so definitely has the upside there, but never showcased it on film, the pass rushing, right? So I think that's the biggest question. Pickens, yeah, it's definitely a question mark there as well. Stevenson, I think I like more, but we had a trade a pick to get him. I think that was my biggest thing over there, and I think we could have waited back and either got him or maybe someone of equal value there. So, but I did like the at least Roshan Johnson pick, and it was a Tyler Scott pick as well. So I think those two will be key contributors, I think, for the team. But yeah, to your point though, with regards to Jalen Carter, I just feel like I think with Ryan Poles, would I have taken Jalen Carter? Maybe. But I think, for them and what they're feeling, I think Darnell was probably the safer pick more so.
The Bears definitely picked like the high school recruiting all-star team. I was thinking back to that list you were saying, like Darnell Wright was a very highly rated recruit. You said Gervon Dexter. I know he was a high, at least 4-star, if not 5-star. Zach Pickens was a 5-star. Noah Sewell, who's Penei Sewell's brother, was a 5-star. Tyreek Stevenson was like a super high 4-star guy. Actually played 2 years at Georgia. I don't know if you guys realize that. And then transferred back home to Miami, which is where he's from. But yeah, to answer your question, Wayne, was around, and I think you were alluding to it earlier. I can't remember one of you guys had mentioned, like, is Jalen Carter this year for the Eagles the same Jalen Carter that would be there for the Bears? I don't know, to be honest. Like, I think there's been a lot of stuff that's come out. I think some has been warranted. I think some has not been warranted. Like, am I saying that everybody's drag racing and that's okay and it shouldn't be like he shouldn't be reprimanded for that, or that shouldn't be like a judgment on his character? No. But like, he didn't, like, if that accident didn't happen, right, are we really talking about kids speeding and racing against other kids? Like, name a college program now with NIL where you're driving these 600 horsepower vehicles where nobody's racing on the road, right? I'm not like justifying that behavior, but like 20 years old. I mean, hell, if we were in that position, are you saying that if you pulled up next to me like at 11 and we're revving your motor, that I'm not going to at least try to take you for like 100 yards right off line? Anyway, So I do think that some of I think that some of it's been overblown. I think that when I look at Jalen Carter, the thing that blows me away is like he's a big dude, but he's not like a freak athletically from a physical standpoint when you look at him, right? Like when you're on the field, his strength and stuff is like it's unbelievable. But you see him and he kind of just looks like this like a little bit like pudgy, honestly. He doesn't look like a dude who's like a beast, but he is. And so it makes me wonder. I just don't know that I've seen his body progress in a way that like somebody who busts their tail in a college strength program would, because I think he has the talent that like if he put a work ethic together with his talent, it's like it's not out of the realm to say you're like you should be Aaron Donald, JJ Watt type of player. Like I mean, he is extremely talented. And I don't know if there's any truth to it. You know, you hear like rumors about what's come out, and there's like people talking about the Georgia coaches wouldn't even endorse him. I think that might be overplayed a little bit. But you start to kind of pick at little comments that you hear, and apparently, like our offensive lines coach said, like when he wants to play, he's unblockable. And it was like, or something to that effect. Like when he actually like really goes hard and gives effort or something. It's like, wait, are you saying that he doesn't always give effort during practice? So when I see guys like that, and I'm like, you go to a team like the Bears where they need to plug you in and probably play, and you need to be the superstar. I do think there's a bigger risk of you kind of failing, right? You're probably playing more downs. You don't get the opportunity to get your feet underneath you. You're moving from being kind of coddled in a college environment to going to the pros. Like these are big steps, you know? Nobody's telling you to show up at study hall. Nobody's telling you to show up at practice on time. Like you got millions of dollars and like it's all on you now. I think when you go to a team like the Eagles where like you're sitting behind Brandon Graham and Fletcher Cox, who are two veterans who have done it forever, right? And then you're sitting there with N'Kobe Dean and Jordan Davis and like Nolan Smith. Not only were they teammates, but also like from an outsider's perspective, like super high character guys. So when you put him in that environment where like he doesn't have to produce right away, there's veteran leadership. There's also other leaders who you played with for multiple years at the college level. Yeah, I absolutely feel like it insulates him from having to be the focal point. I mean, gosh, what is Jalen Carter like in terms of people you want to see on the Eagles? He's probably somewhere from like, is he like the 10th most exciting person on the Eagles? Where would he be on the Bears, right? He's like top 3 dudes you want to see. Maybe number 1 after Fields, right? And so I just think that it does create an easier environment for him to like grow instead of having all that pressure immediately. So just my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, can you tell us more about like what makes Jalen Carter actually special? I mean, there is kind of some of those waves of doubts, but like, what do you actually see in maybe his technique or, you know, what have you, that'll just kind of carry over to the NFL game? And one other thing, like, what do you think of Jordan Davis, N'Kobe Dean at the NFL level now mixing in Nolan Smith, Ringo, Carter? Like, how do you think that'll all kind of play out in Philly?
Man, yeah. I'll take your second question first. I think that it goes back to my comment that I made earlier about the rich getting richer. Like, N'Kobe Dean's the Butkus Award winner, right? He didn't even have to like start, and from what I saw, didn't play that much last year. Jordan Davis is, you know, behind 2 awesome defensive tackles, right? So just have to like have the ability to sit there and kind of learn. Nolan Smith, his draft comparison was Hassan Reddick, who was on the Eagles. Keely Ringo is probably going to sit there and be behind like Darius Slay. I mean, look at these players that these guys get to sit behind. They're like Pro Bowl level. So when you can come in at like in your second or third year, like, yeah, man, I just feel like they are, and like not just in your second and third year, but like, oh, now like, oh, I'm so glad if I'm the center on the whoever the Eagles are playing that like Fletcher Cox went out. It's like, well, now you get to deal with Jalen Carter or Jordan Davis who are fresh, right? They're not playing multiple downs. You can put them in on like, you know, in whatever their specialty is. For Jalen Carter, it could probably be anything. For Jordan Davis, more of like run stopping downs. So anyway, you keep them fresh and you allow them to learn behind guys. Yeah, I just feel like they're stacked. But going back to your first question, which was what makes Jalen Carter special? You know, like when you watch people's highlight tape and there's like maybe like 2 highlights in there where you're like, oh my God, he did that. That is Jalen Carter's entire like highlight tape. I mean, one of the analysts was saying like they were watching a game and it was like you could look like 15 plays in a row and like that could be his highlight tape. And it was literally just a continuous segment from the game. I mean, it's everything, man. Like, you know, you look at one guy and you're like, oh, is he like the D tackle from Pitt? I can't remember how you pronounced his name. He's more of a quick off the ball guy, right? Not going to be a 2-gap player. Like Jalen Carter, you see him blow through people and have an incredible pass rush. And then you literally just see him on it was like against LSU on like 4th down. You know they're going to run the ball. And he just puts their tackle on their ass and like hits the running back in the backfield. It is like, that's a turnover. That's a turnover on downs. Like from a defensive lineman position, you are making game-changing plays. And the guy can just do it all. I don't know how he's so quick and powerful. I mean, there's a reason why they're like, he's the best D tackle prospect in like since Quinnen Williams or whatever. The guy's everything on his tape. I mean, when he was out, I can't remember if Tennessee was the first game he came back. But, you know, that was a huge game with Georgia and Tennessee. Tennessee had actually just moved up to #1 in the country. And here's Jalen Carter, like, gosh, I just wanted to say Dobbs. It's not Dobbs. Hendon Hooker went back to pass, right? And here's Jalen Carter, like, strip sack in the end zone. It should have been a safety. They ended up giving up on, like, the 1-inch yard line, but, like, or the 1-inch line. But when you make plays like that, man, it's like there's nothing like it. You know, when you can, like, create turnovers, you can rush the passer, you can – yeah, I don't know. There's just – I don't see any holes in his game unless you're saying that there is an issue with his work ethic. And even if there is, if that was there in college and he still did that, can you not just limit the number of plays he plays and still let him just, like, unleash him on, like, 60% of the defensive snaps? Because the guy is just a grown man amongst boys, but, yeah.
And that's why the Bears had the worst draft, so – That's it. That's my mic drop right there. Thank you, Taylor.
Watch his highlight tape, man. It is freaking insane.
Oh. Do you think he makes the Pro Bowl, multiple Pro Bowls with the Eagles?
I don't think he'll make it initially. I mean, I think the Eagles are brilliant, right? Because if I'm correct, and I thought I heard it during the draft, that both Brandon Graham and Fletcher Cox are on like 1-year deals. So if you feel like Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter are ready, right, you still got those two dudes on rookie deals, so you can spend your money elsewhere. And if you think they're ready to plug in, well, then maybe you let Brandon Graham and Fletcher Cox go. So I think it'll be dependent upon how quickly he progresses. If they feel like they're ready, I mean, I would lean towards yes, Wayne, just because – maybe less around his talent, which I obviously, based on what I just said, think he's very talented, but more from like, how are you going to key just on him with all the other defenders on the field if you're the Eagles, right, and stacked on offense? Like, you can't just, you know, hone in on one guy and say, we're going to stop Jalen Carter. If we can control Jalen Carter, we can do whatever we want on offense. It's like, well, no. They're loaded at linebacker. They're loaded at other positions on the D-line. They're loaded in the secondary. So I just feel like when you plug in a great player and he's amongst other great players, like everybody eats and everybody thrives compared to if he goes to a lesser team and he has to be the man, maybe you can neutralize him. But if Jordan Davis is next to him, are you gonna put two guys on Jalen Carter? I don't know.
Should be fun to watch. I mean, anybody who's in Philly, I got a good buddy out here, Mark, who loves the Eagles, and I was texting back and forth with him at the draft too. Just my sheer disappointment, my sadness. I could not believe, you know, when they actually traded down, what was actually happening, because I got so high for like 5 seconds and then it just came crashing down. But as a Bears fan, you grow accustomed to this kind of feeling, and it doesn't last too long. So.